Welcome back to Yahoo Finance Live. As we celebrate AAPI Heritage Month, we are taking a closer look at Asian American representation in the workforce. Nonprofit group Ascend out with a new white paper that measures progress in Fortune 1000 companies. And you see the number there. It certainly shows there's still more work to be done. Out of all Fortune 1000 directors, just 4.4% are Asian. The number's even smaller for Asian women at 1.5%. Let's bring in Anna Muck, co-founder and president of Ascend, and it's certainly good to talk to you. Let's talk about the perception versus the reality, because we do talk a lot about sort of this model minority myth around Asian Americans. And the thinking there is that there is certainly a lot of progress being made, especially on the corporate side of things. What did your study find?
Our study has found, and not only this one, but other Ascend studies, it is definitely a perception and a misperception. Because of this model minority concept, people do believe we are equally and maybe even overrepresented across all levels of a company and in society, and that's just not true.
Yeah, the other thing too, I mean, we talk about it as kind of a catch-all Asian, but as your report kind of breaks down, and people have pointed out before, ad nauseum, it's not a monolith. When you dig into kind of the numbers there, people might mistake it as just, one of the larger groups there. When you dig into those differences, though, across those cultural groups within the Asian umbrella, what do you think people miss about kind of the economic angle there or the education angle there, and how these groups differ?
Asian Americans have one of the broadest economic ranges in this terms of disparity. So that is one of the things we really need to better understand. And frankly, just because there has been some Asians who have been able to get into, let's say, ranks of CEOs, there's still very few of them. That doesn't mean all Asian Americans have equally thrived and have been equally successful and have equity as in the workplace.
And we're pointing to sort of a breakdown from your study on the screen there. When you look at the median annual household income, the highest being Indian Americans, more than 100,000, and yet the discrepancy between the high and the low, certainly significant. What do you think has contributed to that, and how do we tackle it?
Well, we have to remember Asian Americans are a community of immigrants. So immigrants come from many different countries and for many different reasons. So on the lower end of that range that you just put up, we have people from different parts of Asia, amongst others, Burma, that really are struggling in society. And there's not a lot of news on that because we tend to focus on, who's only been successful. And even when you look at what success Asian Americans have achieved, we are not at workforce parity, and that's really important of a message for us to get out there.
Yeah, and Kiko opened with highlighting that 4.4% representation among Fortune 1000 directors, but the numbers obviously even smaller for female Asian representation there, and it's something we've been covering kind of in the pandemic, this recovery and the uneven kind of hit to female workers versus male workers. But what have you seen when you dig into kind of the impact to female Asians there and what was already kind of small representation, but the way that they've been impacted in the pandemic too?
Well, the pandemic and frankly, the connection of all the hate, anti-Asian hate that's going on, we are seeing women in the workforce at large, right? Really disproportionately impacted. And Asian women, we have to keep in mind, lots of us come in multi-generational families and households. So we are now worried about our children. We're worried about our aging parents. At the same time, we're being asked to get back into the workforce and take public transit. And so that is creating significant stress on the workforce at large, on women, but in particular on Asian women and other women of color.
That's a very good point as we think about the reopening and the transition there for a lot of employees around conversations that companies are having in regards to just that point. But Anna Muck, Ascend co-founder and president, appreciate you coming on here to chat some of those things with us today. Be well.